Okay, we're going to go over this this flying logo thing, and I'm going to actually start my thing again from the beginning for a couple of reasons. I want to still do that thing. I want to do the universal logo. So what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to try to copy. Let's try the universal flying logo. We're going to try to copy this logo, or I am. You don't have to. You can do whatever you want, but my thing is I'm going to try to do roughly this, but I want my name coming around rather than Universal's. Now, I'm not going to do that either. But one of the reasons I want to redo this is that looking at my old scene, which I probably just abandoned at some point, it's got issues that will be harder to fix than solve, like that. So I'm going to start from the beginning on this whole thing. Now, what I want to do is, actually, if I look at their logo quick, I can tell how long it is. Theirs is about 30 seconds. So I'm going to do this at 60 frames a second, 30 seconds. That's 900 frames. So I'm going to make my timeline 900 frames long. I'm going to go to all 4 views, right? And now, for those that didn't get it last week, and again, you can ask questions as we go, there's always been the tools in here to make flying logos, because flying logos are such a big part of all of this business. I'm going to go over here where it says create. I'm going to go to text, and I'm going to pick solid mesh. And I instantly get this object, and I get this big property panel here. And since we're animating, I'm also going to throw up our schematic with a 9 key. You'll see what it put in here. It actually has 2 objects because it has to actually make the text, which it's hidden, which is just the outline, and then it has to extrude it into an object. If you remember, I'd said a little bit last week how fonts are just curved descriptions anyway. The way this thing works, and if I go back here, you'll see that more, is that it reads the font, and then from the font it gets a description of a curve, and then from that description it turns into an object. So it's 3 pieces. It's the text, then the text to curve converter, then the curve to mesh converter. Now you generally don't even have to think about this because it will just all be there. But if you want all of the controls, you have to select the actual polymesh and then hit Alt and Enter to bring up all of those panels, just so you know they're there. Now, first off, we're going to find the text part, which is where we should start anyway, down there. And I'm going to turn on auto, and I'm going to change my text to what I want it to be. It's going to be my name in caps. Yeah, why not all caps? I so rarely have a good use for cap lock. Is we'll use it when you can. And I'm going to use the F key to frame up that selection so we can see it. Since I have auto on, any change I make we'll see as I make it. So I can actually go through the fonts quick. And just like you would in Photoshop, although Photoshop does have the advantage of showing them all to you, which can be more convenient. But this gives you good feedback, and you'll see some of them are almost exactly the same. There's certain fonts that can't read, so we'll just put in this default. If you want to, you can find a font online. If you find a font and install it, it should be available, and you should be able to mess around with it. Now what I want, I'm going to hop back down here because, remember, I'm copying someone. So if I go over here, what I'm looking at as a font there is I'm looking at a very gentle serif. So much so, you almost might not think it has curves, but it does have tiny curves on it. So I want to find a font that gets close to that. That's too far, I think. Too much. I sort of like that. I'm going to take that. I'm going to also blow up all my screens here You know what? And I'll push this down here so we have a little more room here. I want to see that fairly large because I also want to look for kerning problems. You can get to issues where the letters stick together, like that F and that R are mighty close to each other. I'm also going to give it more detail because we know when we get close to it, it gets a little too rigid there. Let me go to a hidden line removal so we can see the outline of it. Good. And I will modify a couple things. First, let's modify the spacing. And you see when I do that, it gives me a little room between them, which is good. Because I don't want them so tight together. Good. I wonder what that is, fit size. I've never played with fit size before. But it's still not what I'm looking for. What I'm looking for is here, the contours and the holes. If I look here and I see those straight edges, this is how we'll get rid of them. This does the outer part, gives me more subdivisions. This does the inner part, the holes. See this R right here? That'll go up like that. And I can pick larger numbers. I think I will. I think I'll pick 10 on each of them. I'm certain Paramount spends beaucoup bucks on this sort of thing. So, I like that, but now I know that they have an embossed thing to them. Plus, they are deeper. So let's go to extrude. Extrude's going to be the length of the thing. Probably something more like that. I like that more. And I now want to do a bevel. The bevel is going to be what appears in the front of them. If I go to a depth on that, you'll see that what it does is it creates an edge right on the edge of everything. I might even want to look at this way, give myself some better feedback. That's a curved bevel, which I don't want. I want a different bevel that's stepped. If I go back down here, again, depending how much we're trying to copy the thing, we'll go back up here because you can really get along those letters at some points. Over here. There we go. You can see they actually have another set of letters. And I could do that too. I might do that eventually. But they have different versions. Like I'll try this one just to show you. Oh, well, that's, yeah, oh, actually, this is a good one. Let's full screen this for a sec. Because that's the old classic. That's the way they used to do it for real. And then that's kind of the mid-70s sort of thing. Still optical. And this is when they go digital. And you can tell when they go digital. Oh, and look, they don't really have an embossed thing there. Huh. Isn't that interesting that they're not doing the deep embossed thing on the 75th, which must have been a while ago. Let's see what this one is. We'll try a bigger screen too. So it's funny, even amongst themselves, they clearly must have a lot of arguments about this in the Universal offices. That's a more serif-y thing, more curved, but does not have the embossed letters. Let's see if this is more, that's at least the year 2000, although the video quality on this might be so bad as to make it not usable. Let's find Universal Studios logo again. Oh wait, is this one going to do it? Or is that the old one? Nope, that's the old one. This is all of them, and we won't go through all of them, but you're certainly welcome to. I'm just going to go down to the end because I want to see this one. And this one has some crazy embossing on it. I should say beveling. It's even beveled in the back. Hey, let me ask you guys a question. How many of you have ever produced something for a client, like even if it's like for a wedding or something, like a card or like a flyer or a poster or something like that? Any of you? Yes, right? A few? Okay. What were the changes like when you would be like doing like a, like a wedding announcement, or you're doing like a poster for someone's band, and then you show it to them and they go, ah. What if you did this? Or what if you all experienced that, yes? Notice these letters that it seems every few years they seriously change what they're doing with those letters. And I imagine somewhere, probably in Hollywood, there's a lot of 3D animators who have to keep doing stuff to the letters to make them, because someone in a suit says, you know, if they were a little more silvery, or if we had a little bit of a gold edge along the outer edge of it, if we could bump it out a little bit, because I never realized that they were constantly changing these around until right now when I'm looking at it that closely. And I guess why would you? But you'll see that these ones, if we back it up, as compared to the other ones we were looking at, these ones even are embossed in the back. And now I want you to think about this. We've all seen this logo hundreds of times, right? Has anybody ever noticed that before? I certainly never have. And yet I'm certain someone had to do multiple versions of that, probably 30 or 40, for someone to finally say, no, that's the one. We need the one with the embossed thing in back, because that's what they would really look like. I only point that out because we could be going too far in it too. I'm not going to try to get something that complicated. I could, but I just don't feel like it because I'm not that demanding of a client. I'm going to take this, because this actually dictates right here how this is turned. And by the way, I think these are text files. I click this and they have a bunch of pre-built ones, and I'm pretty certain what I want is square 0 to 1 in cut. And I'm right. I think I'm right. And I can play around with this to see how far we want it to be. Maybe like that, yeah. Yeah, okay, I like that. Okay, now that's going to be what I have coming around. Now let's make the globe and the rest of it. I'm going to go back down here, and I want to check their scale, like where everything ends up at. And I see that the word is pretty far away from the planet. I don't know if it's always that far away from the planet, because it seems like the camera comes between them. Wow, that's where we're right in front of it. But I'm actually looking at, when it finishes, I'm looking at the planet is literally maybe 1/2 as wide as the word. So I'm going to try to follow those ratios. I'm going to go back here and I'm going to deal with my front view, because I know that's where I'm going to end up. And actually, I'll hit the G button, because then I can get rid of my background. And let's put in I'm going to put in a sphere, a polygonal one. And I'm going to subdivide it with our plus key, like that. Now let's move it. We'll put it like that. And now I'm going to scale the thing. Probably about there. Probably. I might move it a little bit that way. Yeah. Let me go back here and just see how that reads. Let me also move the letters forward. Control Z. Let me select the letters again. I can do that very easily down here from the schematic. And we'll pull those letters forward to here. And you see when I do that, I'm actually, no, actually that's fine. That works out fine. That's probably too far for the perspective thing, but let's put them there. And we will figure out how this thing ends sort of like that. Good. Okay, so far I like this. Now let me do the path. Let me bend it and make it follow this path. And I'm going to do that by deforming the object. And now I can do a couple things here. I can actually, if I know I'm good with those letters, and tell me this, there's something I should have done by now that I haven't done. What is it? It's very important. A what? I'm going to do that. But there's something, there's something I should do before that we never do enough of. Yes. Because I've come this far, it makes sense to save. I'm going to call this, and I made my own project for it, I'm going to call this logo setup 1. Okay, and I'm going to do this copy external files even though I don't have them. That way we can go back to that if we need to. Now let's do the curve. I can actually extract a curve, and I'm going to try that just so you can see it. Can I do this? Maybe I can do this. Can I do this from polygonal object? Yeah, okay, let's see what happens. Extract from...
You have to select the curve, the edges first, and then extract them.
Oh yeah, okay, that makes sense. I'll go to edge mode, I'll go to F9, I'm going to select this one, and I'm going to do edge loop, which will give me the loop of the whole thing, which is somewhere here, edge loop, edge loop, edge loop, there we go. Loop from selections, there we go. Now, if I right mouse it, extract edges as a curve, look at that. Bang, I got myself a curve. And you see if I do this, it will follow just what I want it to, and it will be exactly, you can look over here, it will be exactly based on where that other one is. This could be useful. I'm even going to show you, I'm going to turn on here the links so you can see that they're connected. That way it knows that this is connected to that, and that's connected to this. Okay, now I know I have to scale it bigger because this is what's going to deform. Control Z. I want to do just the curve. Control Z. I want to do just the COG curve like that. Now let's try the deformation. Okay, I'm going to select my object, which is this. I am going to deform by curve, and then it's going to ask me to pick the curve, that one, and it did it. It didn't do it the right way, but that's okay because that's me just playing with the axis. That's probably the one I wanted to do it on. You'll notice that we have a 0 issue, but that's actually very dealable. Although it's funny, it seemed to be doing it based on the old size of the curve. Whoa. We'll put that back to 1. I'm going to play with the settings in here to get them to do what I want them to do. Let's see what we want to do here. Constrain to the deformer. Yes. Man, that made a difference, huh? I didn't even know what that button did, by the way. Just sounded good. Let's click the help. It'd be so useful in these sorts of things. There's a thing about deformations. The first big 3D program I used to use, Lightwave, the only tools it had were deformations. So you had primitives and deformations. So the way you modeled stuff is you took objects and then you threw these deformations at them. And they took a while. Like if I had an object that was like 50 points and I wanted to twirl it, it might take 4 or 5 minutes for the computer to try it, and then you had to look at it and see if it happened. You had to go back and forth. This is a technology that's been around for a long time. They are literally little programs you throw at an object. I probably didn't teach it to anyone in 3D1 because it just doesn't come up anymore. But it's useful. Like this is a perfect example of it. This is just what I want it to do. And if I click that help there, it's going to show me under this deformation what those things do. We'll see constrained deformer, select this option if the deformed object was moved from the global center before, which is exactly what we did. So it does explain it there. There's several other things about this I can do. Let's see what roll does. Roll actually lets me do that sort of thing if I want to animate that. I don't, but it's kind of a neat option to know I have it. And translate. This is how I want it to come in, the words. So this is really going to be the thing I animate. So if I want this whole thing to end somewhere, and we'll say, I mean, obviously we want everything to end somewhere. Let's say we're going to pick this front view here, and we're going to call that the final point where everything will end up. Because it has to be readable too. And actually, this is where I might get into some other issues. I have that gap right in the middle there, and if I go back like this, I might have to make the curve smaller. Or I could also do some optical illusion stuff. Why not do some optical illusion stuff? It's also on the wrong side of what I want, but that's not hard to solve. I can just put it back here, and I can use negative numbers here, I'm certain. -5, we'll try. Oh, that's not what I wanted. 0. Maybe we want positive numbers. Maybe. Constrained deformer, what does this one do? Ew. No, I like that one better. Let me go back here. Translate along curve. And we want it to come across from -50 maybe? Yeah, further. -100. And let's see where that comes. That's coming in right. It's just not left to right. There's several ways I can deal with that. I'm probably going to use a bad way of doing it, so I'm going to save again. And I'm going to call this logo setup 2. And the bad way I'm going to do this is I'm going to do a negative roll. Oh, I know I'm going to regret this. Okay, you're there. You're here. -180. And then I'm going to take this curve and I'm going to rotate it. Now you see everything comes around with it. That's one of the nice things about having this animation attached to that curve. Why didn't you go all the way around there? Good. I can see that's -180, or I think 180 will work fine. Good. When I turn that 180, and then I probably can translate the thing. Oh, why are you on add? Go to global. Let me undo that back a little bit because I feel I'll regret it otherwise. See? Already regretting it. We'll take this here. We're going to turn on the rotations. We're going to do a global. We're going to do a global COG. And let me make sure 180 works there. Yes, good. This, I think, especially if I go back to that deformer, to get to the deformer, by the way, if I select the word polymesh over here, the deformer is going to be in its operator stack. So when I go under its selection, we'll find down here, let's see what we have here. There's my NURBS curve list. My curve deformation. Right here, we can now see how that animates. See? So I want that to animate over, we want to start probably, oh dear, wrong one. I should lock that. We want to start over here, we'll say. So I'm going to keyframe that there. And I want it to come across, and we want it to end by frame 900 to be right in front of where we are looking at it. We'll say right about there. And I'm going to have to do something with the letters, but I'll be able to deal with that. We'll go here. I'm going to keyframe that. So now we have this happening if we just look at it. I'm going to hit play. And actually, it's going to take forever to play because it's a 30-second thing. I want to make sure that I'm on real-time playback so that we'll actually play it back in the actual duration that we're working with here. If I hit play, if we look up here, and this is where you might actually need that button, I'm going to mute it, so that's the only one that's working. This would be the rough timing of that sequence. Now, just so you know it, because we'll get more into this, I'm going to take a break after this and have you mess around with it a bit. I can look at the curve that made that. If I'm over here and I hit my 0 key, it's going to show me the animation editor. And that's good. I've really only animated one thing. This one thing, which is the position of the curve. And you see it has 2 keyframes, and we're in that curve editor. And so from here, I could even dictate how it comes in, because I think it starts out faster and then it gets slower. And since we have these keyframes, I can have it do that. This will make it much faster to start and more slowly coasting in. Watch. So it's moving faster in the beginning, and then it's going to smooth itself into its stop. And the reason I'm doing that is because I think they did that in the Universal logo too. I think. But I'd have to play around with that a little bit. Now, more importantly, I have to deal with the fact that we can't really read my name because it's longer than the Universal logo. And you see, this is us slowing into that final position. See us there? Good. Let's try, I'm going to turn off this thing now. Let's try taking this curve and let's try scaling it this way to see if we can get away with making the letters more seeable like that. Maybe spreading them out this way, but I think no matter what, I'm going to have to make the word shorter, which is okay. I can do that. I still have enough stuff left in here to do that. Let's see what that looks like, by the way. If I notice it, I don't think I will, even if I bend it like that, that if I move the camera right, it will still read like it's going across there. And who knows, maybe I have to ditch the Schmidt. I could do that. Okay, it's better. I'm losing my F. And I have all that dead space in the middle, which is why it's not great to have two words. You know what I could do? Actually, that would be a much better way of doing this. I could put one name on top of the other. And strangely, I think, if I go back here, and I'm going to hit Alt and Enter, which is going to bring up all those property panels, and I go back to the actual text. Boy, I hope I can get away with this. If I go here and I go multiple line, and I hit a return, look at that. I might be able to get away with this. Look at that. Indeed I can. And actually this gives me more room to mess around with it. I can make it bigger, which means I can go down here, and let's see, where the hell's the thing that makes it bigger? That's steps, that's contours, fit size. We could actually stretch me out a little bit there. Yeah, why not? Spacing. Yeah, see, that's a much better way of doing it. Look at that, a little graphic design problem solved. Just a little bit of a kerning thing. And basically now I want this to end at a different point. So instead of ending here, and I can do it from down here, I could just move this keyframe. This is key, I'll click this here. First I'll select my curve, good. And now I'll select my keyframe, good. Now basically this keyframe goes to 37. I don't want it to go to 37. I want it to go here maybe? Yeah, look at that. I can even kind of fine tune that in. This is worthy of another save. File, save as. I'm going to call this logo setup good. And I'm going to take a break. I'll stop our capture.